For this project, we're going to use lots of different stitches, but we are going to start with the running stitch today. So for that, I need 3 items first. I need a birdie, I'm going to need my yarn, and I'm going to need my needle here. So I'm going to use the birdie to catch this worm or piece of yarn really right here close to the top. And then I close its beak tight so it can take it to its little nest in the tree, which is the eye of the needle. And then I pull it, but I don't pull it all the way through. I have to leave a little loop here. And once I have that loop, I can take the birdie off. This little piece right here then is going to go through that little loop that I left, and I can pull both sides kind of tight. This is going to make it very easy for me to take the yarn off in the end. Then I also need to tie a little knot on this end. So on the other end of my yarn here, I'm just going to make this sort of upside down raindrop where I have this little tail down here. Then I'm going to take this little tail and put it underneath that little loop and pull it so that I have a loose knot. We don't want it too tight, otherwise it goes right through the burlap. Now I'd like to start with something simple, so I'm going to start with my ground line here at the bottom. So for that, I'm going to turn my burlap sideways like this because it's much easier for me to stitch going up vertically like this. So then I'm going to take my needle and stick it underneath the burlap and sort of poke around until I find the end of that line. Once I find that line, I'm going to be careful to pull the string all the way until the knot hits the back of my burlap. At this point, I can begin my running stitch. For a running stitch, we are going to do a little bit of counting. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit there. And what I like to do is I like to put my thumb right next to this piece of string that comes out and then pinch forward. If you notice, I'm not touching the line because then I won't be able to see where to stitch. I have to put my thumb down here and then pinch next to the line. That just lifts the burlap a little bit and makes it easier. So my next step is going to be to count 4 little holes. So burlap has these little tiny holes in it. I'm going to use the tip of my needle just to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And I stick just the tip of the needle underneath. And then I go under 2 rows of burlap here. If you notice, I didn't have to go down to the other side at all. I'm staying on top the entire time until I get to the other side. Then I pull it through and then keep pulling until it's tight and I have my first stitch finished. Then I move my fingers forward and again put my thumb next to this loose piece of yarn and pinch again. Then right in front of this piece of yarn, I'm going to count 4 little holes while staying on the black line. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go under 2 rows of burlap and then come right back out on that black line, and then I pull it all the way. And then I'm just going to continue that pattern where I move my thumb forward, pinch, and then I count 1, 2, 3, 4 on the black line, go under 2 rows of burlap, push and pull, making sure that I stay on top of my burlap the entire time. When I get to the end of my line here, I'm going to do something different. Now that I'm at the end of my line, I'm going to take my needle, and at this point I can stick it down all the way to the other side. This way, we don't see any knots on the front side. We want to make sure that we keep it nice and neat. Then I can flip over my burlap and tie a knot. So what I like to do is right here where it comes out of the burlap should be the center, and then just sort of swirl the string around it like this. It looks a little bit like a seashell that kind of swirls around. And then I take my needle and I stick it underneath the middle of that swirl, the very closest to the middle, and then I use fingers to gently press the knot so it's close to the burlap. And I keep doing that until it's right there next to the burlap, and then at that point I can cut it. And I'm ready for my next stitch.